welcome back to my channel. I'm Angelina and today's video is super fun because I'm celebrating my 21st birthday. So I thought for my 21st birthday I would tell you guys 21 books that have affected me, have made an impact on my life, have just been books that I have loved and enjoyed over the course of 21 years. Also, can we just take a moment to appreciate my shelves? I mean, they're beautiful. I love turning the books around for winter. Like, I think it just makes such a pretty calming aesthetic. But y'all, trying to find the books on my shelves was a hassle. I was getting so frustrated. Alright, I've got my list, and these are pretty much in no particular order. But let's just start with the book that has impacted me the most throughout my life. And that book is Percy Jackson and the Olympians. This book just holds such an important place in my heart because it's the first book series that I remember like reading for pleasure and loving, and I honestly see this book as kickstarting my passion for reading and just like making me into the reader I am today, and that is why I love this book so much. And I just finished reading the Trials of Apollo series this summer. So like this has been going on for so long. I started this book in 3rd grade and like the companion series and everything have kept up with me through college. I'm graduating in May and I'm still like ready to read Rick Riordan. Like he's coming up with the new book about Will and Nico. Like, I'm so excited to read that. But yes, I could go on and on about how much I love this series, how much it means to me, but this is the first important book. Okay, the second book on my list is, of course, Harry Potter. We can't make a list without Harry Potter, naturally. I mean, who doesn't love Harry Potter? I got my letter from Hogwarts, which I keep in the book. I'll show the back of it. I got my letter from Hogwarts. I'm gonna cover that up. It's an old address anyway. But I got my letter from Hogwarts in high school, so always been a Harry Potter fan. It's my go-to Halloween costume. I can just throw on my robe and pull out a wand. But yes, of course, Harry Potter had to make the list. And the next book on my list is another book that was super popular back during like middle school and high school, and which just also fueled my love for reading, and that is the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. I was obsessed with these in high school, and I still just like, when I think about this series, I love it. Like, I thought it was such a good series. Selena Sardarthian, I was like, I want to be her in high school. I was like, yes, that is who I want to be when I grow up. I want to be an assassin. The next book on my list are 2 series by Ali Carter, and these were books I read in middle school and high school, probably beginning of high school, that I just absolutely adored, and that is the Gallagher series. Gallagher Girl series? I can never say it. It's this one right here, Gallagher, however you say it, in the High Society series. This series, and the first book is I Tell You I Love You But Then I Have to Kill You, is about a female spy academy, and it just like made me love espionage and like spy stuff, and I am still always ready to read like a spy book or watch a spy movie, and all because of this book series right here. It was so good. There were like 5 books, I think. And the High Society series I also adored, and I cannot for the life of me find the first book, so I picked the 3rd. But this was a series about a girl who comes from a family of thieves, and she and like her cousins and friends get together to like pull different heists, and it's so fun. It is so enjoyable. If you like spy things and like heist stories, definitely check out these 2 series because they are so good. Okay, moving on. Of course, okay, the next book on my list is yet again another series, and that is the Shadowhunter Chronicles by Cassandra Clare. I love the Shadowhunter books. I love every single series. My favorite series is probably, I really loved The Dark Artifices with Emma and Julian. I love those. I'm also loving the new Chain of Gold and Chain of Iron, like those books. I'm really loving those. But anything in the Shadowhunter world by Cassandra Clare, I just adore. Again, I read this in high school, and it was one of those series that like it never ends and there's a million books, so I just devoured these in high school. Okay, next. Oh, I didn't pull this book. Oh my gosh. I know where it is though, hold on. And the next book, no surprise, is 6 of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. This is one of my all-time favorite books. This is like one of the best books I have ever read in my entire life. I am so obsessed with it. I read it whenever it came out. What year was that? It came out in 2015. So I was probably 14 or 15 years old when I read this book. And I'm just still obsessed with it. It is still so good. Honestly, this duology is probably like one of the best duologies in existence. One of the best fantasy books in existence, period. Alright, now I think we're getting slightly more into like the standalone books. So up first I have this book called The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien. I read this book in my 11th grade literature class, and it has stuck with me through all these years. So this is a story about the Vietnam War. It's almost like a memoir, but it's more fiction based than real. But it's just so good. It's just stories about the soldiers in Vietnam, and I think I resonate so much with this book because my grandfather fought in Vietnam. And so just like reading about these stories, I'm like, you know, my grandfather could have been going through that. Like it was just really, really interesting to read. And the writing is just so good. Like I just think about this book all the time. It has just made an impact on me. Alright, the next book is a book that I cannot find. I've been looking for it for like years. I feel like I gave it to someone to borrow and I never got it back. I don't know, but it's a book that my mom and I bought together, and that is A Man Called Ovae by Frederick Backman. I adore this book. I love this author. First of all, Frederick Backman, so good. I want to say he's like a Swedish author. I think he's from Sweden. But his writing is just beautiful. His stories are just absolutely wonderful. I love him so much. So this old man named Ovae just wants to die, and he attempts suicide, but every time he gets close to whatever he's trying to do, his neighbors interrupt him. And it's you know, it's a pretty heavy subject, but it's also very funny in this book because he's like, you know, he's getting ready to do whatever he's going to do to end his life, and the neighbor's like ringing the doorbell, and he's just a grouchy old man, doesn't want anything to do with these new neighbors he has, but eventually he ends up just like coming to love his neighbors, and they have such a sweet friendship. It's a young couple and this old man, and they just become like family. It's just such a sweet story. It is just so good. Like, I think about this book all the time. The next book on this list is another book by Frederick Backman, which I just finished reading like a week ago, and that is Anxious People. This story it's really quite funny actually. It's very heavy but quite funny. And it is a story about a crime that never happened and 8 very anxious strangers who end up getting held hostage together. So it starts with a bank robbery. The bank robbery does not go according to plan, and it ends up as a hostage crisis. But all these hostages are just silly, goofy, anxious people, and they basically just like get to know each other during this hostage crisis. It's so good. I definitely recommend reading this. It's absolutely fantastic. Alright, you guys, the 10th book we are looking at is Lovely Ward by Julie Berry. I read this book earlier this year and I just fell in love with it. It is so good. It is a World War I love story with 2 different romances, and it is narrated by Aphrodite in the World War II era. So it's really good. It's a war story. It's a love story. It is so beautifully written. Like, I don't know how many other books I can say are this beautiful. This book just made me cry. It made me sob. Definitely read this book if you have not. If you like historical fiction, if you love stories, read this. It's so good. The next book on my list is also another book I read earlier this year, and that is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Cloon. One of my friends is actually borrowing this book, but it is just such a sweet story about found family and love and embracing your differences, and it is just so cute. It has magical elements in it. Definitely worth the hype. It's just such a feel-good book. The 12th book on this list is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I adore this book. I cannot recommend this book enough, and this gets a lot of hype because it is so good. It's definitely worth all the hype. It is a story about this woman who was an actress in like the 50s through 80s or something like that, and now in like modern day she is retelling her life story to a journalist. And she's just uncovering everything about her lives, about her 7 husbands. And this is also one of the first books that made me realize that I could like adult novels. This taught me that adult fiction is actually interesting. And so this kind of like sparked my adult fiction journey, you could say. So this is part of the reason why this book made the list, just because it like, not only it was so good, but it also started a new chapter in my life. The next book on this list is The Midnight Library by Matt Hague? I can't remember his name right now, but you know this book, you know it. This book was so good. It is a story about a woman who dies, and kind of in between death and life is a library. And in this library are all these books, and she will pull a book off the shelf and read about that potential life she could have had. And so she gets the chance to live out all these different lives, and if there's a life that she would prefer, she could go live that life instead of like basically crossing over into death. It is just such a good story. It was just so like gut-wrenching. It like squeezed my heart, made me feel all these emotions, and just made me like you know, be appreciative of life and everything. So this is such a good book. The 14th book on this list is Princess Bride by William Goldman. I am obsessed with this book. This book was like one of my top 2 favorite books of last year. It's absolutely fantastic. Most of you have probably seen the movie. I grew up watching the movie. I absolutely love it. I was unprepared for how often I would laugh in this book and just like how enjoyable this was. And William Goldman does like something amazing with this book. It's like, he really made me believe that these countries in this book are real and that this story was real and that he was a historian gathering this, you know, this piece of history. Just how he narrates this book is just amazing. I think this is one of the like best pieces of fiction like ever. It's amazing. Oh, another piece of hysterical fiction coming in at number 15 is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. This book is just so funny. It is one of the funniest books I've ever read, along with Princess Bride. It's a science fiction piece. This man is just minding his own business and suddenly aliens are like zapping Earth out of existence. Normal British guy ends up going into space with these aliens, like trying to find the meaning of life. Like, oh my god, it's so good. It is so funny. I'm not a huge science fiction fan, but this is so good. Best piece of science fiction I've ever read. Number 16 is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This book was just so gorgeous. Again, I read this book earlier this year and I just fell in love with it. The writing is beautiful. The story is so beautiful. I mean, I know the story of Achilles and Patroclus, but this book, y'all, just made me fall in love with these characters in a way that a book has not done for me in a really long time. I just became so invested in these characters and this story and this writing, and I sobbed so hard at the end of this book, even though I knew what was coming. It's just absolutely beautiful. Alright, chugging along. Oh, number 17. Number 17 is a good one. And that is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. I read this book in high school and then I read it again my freshman year of college because I just needed some comfort. This is a story about a young fangirl who goes to college and she writes fan fiction, and it's just her like learning to adapt to this new lifestyle of college, adapt to this transition in her life, but it's just so good and it's so relatable. Up next at number 18 we have Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. So it's about America's first son, like the son of the president, and a prince of England. They're enemies to lovers, and it's just so cute. It's so good. This book was also like an introduction into new adult fiction because I was really struggling trying to find books that weren't YA but weren't like super old adult romance books, and I came across this book and it was just perfect. It was exactly what I needed as a college student. So this just kind of opened the door to new adult fiction and it's just helped me find similar books. So this also is kind of like a transition point in my life, was reading this book and opening the doors to all these new romances, because I've really been in the mood to read romance books recently, and I think it's all because of this one. Okay, number 19 is actually kind of a funny one, and this is Struck by Lightning by Chris Colfer. If y'all don't know who Chris Colfer is, he played Kurt on Glee, and now he's an author. He has this book and he has a children's series, but this book is just about a guy. He hates high school. He just wants to get out of his little town. He wants to go to like a journalism school. And I just really related to this character in high school because I also was ready to get out. Looking back now, I like high school more than I did when I was in it. I just really related to this book because I was like, yeah, high school sucks. Like, our life is miserable, whatever. But this book was the perfect teen angst book, and I just related to it so much. And I think about this book all the time because it's just so funny. It's just outrageous. It's hilarious. Number 20 is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. I read this book 10th grade. Look at all these tabs. Like, I enjoyed this book thoroughly. It's one of the few classics that I actually really like. Oops, there go some of my notes. But it's just like a crazy wild story, but I really liked it. And I think that this book made the 21 impactful books because it was a classic that I had to read for school, and I just hate classics. But this was like, no, this was actually really good. And I felt like such like a cultured reader after reading this. But I really did enjoy it. And one day I would like to buy like the full version because I think this is the abridged version and it's like 600 pages. But one day I would like to read the full version. It was just really good. Whew, I found this last book. I forgot about it. Alright, and coming at number 21 is The Invisible Life of Addie Larue by V.E. Schwab. This is another book I read recently. I think I read it last year. It is just so beautiful. It is a story about a woman who was born in like, I want to say 1400s. Essentially, she makes a deal with like the devil, and for the rest of her life she doesn't age. She's basically immortal, but no one remembers her. So she goes through life without ever being remembered. It's a very lonely existence. And just something about this book is just absolutely incredible. It just pulls at your heartstrings. It just made me feel things. This is one of the books that just really tugged at all my emotions. I absolutely adored this book. But those are my 21 books for 21 years. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have read any of these books and you also love them, let me know down below. Or if you have any super fantastic books that you think I should read, let me know those as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like this video if you enjoy it. I hope to be posting more during this holiday season since I'll be home, and hopefully we'll have some free time. Alright, see y'all next time. Bye!